Greetings, fellow settlers. It is Alex here, and today I have another Settlers of Catan gameplay for you. Now, the purple starts first and puts its settlement on 699, which is a great spot. It is actually the best possible spot you can get, worth 13 production points. These kind of points or spots are very rare because usually the highest number of points you can get is 12, but this is an exceptional spot where you can get 13. So the purple correctly, of course, takes this location. Now the additional benefit of this spot is also the wood and brick combination. So you actually get complementary resources here, and I'm pretty much sure that the purple is going to choose a wood brick strategy or road strategy. Now red, on the other hand, takes the second best spot, worth 12 points. Of course, it also has two complementary resources, wheat and ore, so you'll probably go for the sit knight strategy. Although the problem of this spot is you are too heavily dependent on a wheat. And I mean, 10 ore is, in my opinion, not nearly enough for your needs. Because in city knight strategy you need to have larger quantities of ore, and in his case he has large quantities of wheat. Now I'm here in a very tough position because because all the good numbers are concentrated in this 13 point spot. Therefore I decided to do an exceptional or very rare strategy, the strategy which I usually don't recommend, and this is so called monopoly strategy, which is not, or some also call it port strategy, but the main difference is that, in my opinion, port strategy can be incorporated into many other strategies. For example, whether you play road strategy, city knight strategy, or balance strategy, I always recommend that you use also port strategy. So if you have large amount of one resource, that you get to a 2-to-1 port, and you can trade some resources and benefit with them. But monopolizing a resource is a strategy I call where you basically have large quantities of a single resource, and this is actually my goal in this video also. Now, on the other hand, I am also using so-called road strategy because I have large amounts of wood and brick. But my long-term aim is to firstly go into the wheat port, and secondly occupy that 8, 10, 11 spot, which will increase greatly my wheat production. Now, another thing I would like to mention is that I usually don't recommend going for so-called monopolizing a resource, because this kind of strategy takes large amount of time to win, which you can also see from the length of this video. It is actually more than 45 minutes long, and like my usual videos are maybe half an hour max. So what I want to say is that by converting two resources to one, you need a longer time in order to get 10 victory points. And time is, of course, valuable resource in Settlers of Catan, because if you have to have if you need a long time to win, then some other player will win before you. Therefore, I advise using this monopolizing resource strategy only on strange islands like this, where the other players also don't get very good resource distribution. And for this example, we can see that on this island, very good numbers are concentrated at this 13 spot worth 13 production points. Also, ore is extremely concentrated down in the south near the desert with 4 and 10 also, but I mean next to the 4 there are pretty bad numbers. We have 3, 11, 2, and 10, yes, it's not a bad number, but still it's not very good. It's kind of in the middle. So, and ore is in the end of the game the most important resource because you can build cities and double your production. Now, also what I'm doing here is I'm letting the purple player know that he can take the wood port and that I will not try to cut him out. Now, why is this important? Because the last thing in the world is that I don't want him to compete with me for a wheat port. I want to have for myself. So I'm just trying to, lure him to just go to his wood port and leave me alone. Now, for some of you, this might seem like something unnecessary, but I can guarantee you that after playing so many games of Settlers of Catan, and not only online, like I have played many, many more games in person with real persons, and it really, really helps if you are, kind of guiding the other players to do what you want to do. So, in my opinion, it really helps a lot. And also, of course, coming into this Witport is the crucial part of my strategy. As I said before, for any kind of strategy, I always advise you to go into the port. Preferably, most likely, most of the times, 3 to 1 port will be the best. But in my case, of course, this wheat port is a vital part of my strategy. And of course, thankfully, I have large wood and brick supplies, so I will hopefully also take the longest road, build a couple of more settlements, and then use my wheat port for ores in order to build cities. Uh, so that's what I'm talking about. You always need to have some kind of a strategy, long-term strategy. Now, of course, as you can see, I have enough resources for a road, but if I can get one wood out of someone, I can build a road and a settlement. And another advice for the new players, never build immediately, but always try to trade first. Like if I build a road and then try to, get the wood, the other players will probably get suspicious. They will probably know I want to build a settlement. But right now, they're actually not certain. Like maybe they don't know I have one wood. Maybe some of them think I only want to build a road. So this is something you should really look for if you want to play on a more competitive level. Now I'm really trying to get the wood out of someone. I'm even willing to give out 2 resources. Also because I'm in a really bad situation because I have 9 resources in my hand, so I really don't want the robber to roll and rob me of 4 resources. So I'm really just trying to get the wood out of someone, but it seems extremely unlikely. So I'll probably just build a road and, you know, pass on and take my chances. So yeah, that's what I did. Um, well, hopefully I have 7 cards, and so I don't lose anything with the rubber. And let's see where the purple puts it. If I were him, I would put it on the 5 wheat, which would hurt both players, green and red. So me and red player. Oh my god! And what a disaster! He robs me and takes my sheep, which is terrible, terrible, terrible for me. I would be fine with him taking a brick or a wheat, but a sheep, come on. That's something I really, really needed. So, not the best start, but there's nothing I can do about it. Now, maybe to mention a little bit the red player, because as I said, I predicted in the beginning that the purple player will go for the road strategy, and I said that the red player will go for the sit knight strategy. Well, after looking at this, it's kind of a debatable because purple player has very good wood and good brick, but also massive ore production. But what he's lacking extremely is a good wheat spot. And 3 is not a good wheat spot by any kind of imagination. And as I always say, wheat is overall the most important resource in the game because you cannot build anything with the wheat. You need it for development cards, settlements, and cities. So I think he's really undervaluing the value of wheat. Although, of course, he will get more wheat by building in this ore port, which is a big mistake on his part, in my opinion. If I were him, I would first build a settlement in the ore port. And by this, I would get more wheat and an ore port. And, that would be actually a win-win situation. So, kind of, I don't know. The purple player seems to me as kind of a more balanced approach with good everything. He has good number on all resources. The only exception is wheat, which is not very good combination. But red, on the other hand, is also an interesting example. At first, he concentrated heavily on the wheat and ore, but for the second settlement, he chose to take the 6, 9, 12 spot. So he also has a very good wood and brick production. But he's missing one important part. He's missing a ship. So that's probably why he's building towards that 9 and 6 spot. And that's a big problem because by going for the sit knight strategy, you also need some sheep in order to buy development cards. And in my opinion, he did massive mistakes by building his settlements. Now, it's nothing wrong with him going for the 9 sheep spot, but where he made a big mistake, in my opinion, is by placing a first settlement and then building a road towards that 2 wood spot. I mean, why would you want to build there? There are no there you won't get any good numbers. Like you can get what 211, maybe 4 if you build 2 roads. So he should actually build a road between this 8 width and 10 ore spot. So he should point the road toward the 3 to 1 port. And as you know, 3 to 1 ports are usually the most useful ports for almost every strategy. So big mistake on his part. But again, he's right now for me kind of a mystery. I would say also kind of a balanced strategy. But if he gets the 9 sheep, he could try maybe city knight. But I mean, they are both more, I would say, more balanced strategy than anything else. Like yes, they have good wood and brick production, but also ore and wheat is pretty good on both of them. Um, like this is the speciality of this island, I guess, that it has very good wood and brick spots. And of course, as always, you have to plan for the future. You have to look out what bonus you're going to take. Now, it's almost impossible to win without getting longest road, largest army, or even both of them. So you should always look after what the other players' strategies are going to be. So in this case, since wood and brick are so abundant, it would actually um, maybe be better to go for city knight strategy. Why I'm saying that? Because it's never good to go for a strategy and compete with other players. The best thing is to, even though you don't have a good resources for the certain strategy, but if you are the only one going for it, it's sometimes better than, getting into the resource war with another player and, for example, just spending massive amounts of wood and brick in order to obtain the longest road. And this is also the reason why I usually prefer city night strategy, because it's a lot more sneaky, and with the road strategy everybody knows that you have the longest road, and it is easy to take. But on the other hand, city night strategy is, you have development cards, so the other players don't know what you have in your hands, and you also get very useful bonuses. But we'll see. I mean, I have pretty good wood and brick production, and I might as well go for the roads, or the largest army, because I have a 2-to-1 port. But in my opinion, the first priority right here should be actually getting a settlement next to this 8 wheat spot. Now another thing maybe you should keep in mind is not to go in the lead too much. You should probably, in the beginning of the game, you shouldn't have more than 2 points advantage over the other two players. But I think it's okay since both of them have one settlement, one additional settlement. So I have only 1 points lead, and I mean, the benefit of being next to the 8 wheat spot is, in my opinion, pretty advantageous to me, by boosting my wheat production. And right now, it's really, they cannot stop my wheat production. I mean, if you look at it, if they block my 8, I have 5, 4, and 3 producing. If they block my 5, I have the other spots producing. So I mean, in my opinion, I have pretty good options right here. Although I'm a little bit concerned about the purple player, especially when he can build in the ore port. Right here, maybe I'm trying to build a road, but seems like nobody's willing to trade with me, so I'm probably just going to pass. Just maybe one ore. I'm trying to trade. Even though you have a port, you should still try to trade, especially if your opponents are lacking behind you, because in the end of the day, it's still better to give one resource for another than to pay 2 to get one specific resource. But anyways, another 7 is being rolled. I mean, 7s are pretty common in this game. But I mean, at the end of the game, we will actually look at another 7. We'll actually look at the distribution of the numbers, and I bet that 7 will be pretty above average. Now red blocking the 6 wood, and as you can see, purple and red are actually engaged in kind of a war, can we say, because they're robbing each other, and I mean, I don't have anything against this. Better for me. But anyways, I'm trying to get an ore out of someone so that maybe I could buy a development card by converting the other 2 wheats into the sheep or a brick, but seems like they're not willing to trade. So I'll probably just pass. And right now, really, when you're in the lead like I am, you probably don't want to get more points in the board. So right now, in my opinion, I should probably buy more development cards and wait for them to, get more points, because by getting 5 points, I mean, at least if you're playing with a good players in the beginning of the game, you shouldn't get more than 2 points advantage over them. because then you will start getting targeted by the robber. I mean, even though I would love to have a city at this 6-4 free spot, which would actually boost my production immensely, I am really skeptical. I think the best strategy right here would be to buy development cards. So, as a general rule, remember, um, when you are lacking behind, when you are behind the other players, you should build cities, because cities boost your production the most. Well, at least if you build them on the best spots, of course. Um, but on the other hand, if you are the leader, you should probably, unless you have like 8 points, or if it is the late game and you're really racing to get 10 points, in the beginning, if you're the leading player, you should probably buy development cards, because they don't alert such a big attention to the other players. And of course, they provide useful bonuses. Now, right here, I decided to also go to the 3-to-1 port, because this will enable me to get really favorable trades. So I'll have a wheat port and, of course, 3-to-1 port for everything else. And of course, purple and red with their thing, robbing each other. I'm really surprised that they don't see me as a threat, even though, I mean, I have 4 points, I have a wheat port, so if I were the purple player, I would definitely try to target me. But anyways, nothing I could say. I mean, I cannot complain. Trying to be nice, to discourage the further theft from me. And it's red's turn. Number 3, that's great for me. I get 2 wheats. 4. So basically, I have a city in my hand. I can exchange 4 wheats for 3 ores. And even though what I said in the couple of minutes ago, that you should not really take the lead. Like in Settlers of Catan, there are some basic rules, but sometimes they are not universal. You have to go with the flow, and with more experience, you will see which decisions are better for you. And in this case, the reason why I'm building a city, even though I will get 2 points lead over them, the reasons are the following. Now, first reason is that red and purple are engaged in a war, so they're robbing each other, and they're not robbing me, even though I am the guy in the lead, and I have a wheat port and everything else. So that's the first reason, and the second reason is that I'm playing a port strategy. I'm not playing, maybe sit knight strategy. I'm not building a city next to a good ore spot. No, I'm building a city next to 6-4 free spot. Why is that? I want to boost my wheat production as much as possible. So if I build a city next to the 5 spot, I will increase my wheat production for 4 points. If I build it next to the 8 spot, I will increase my production for 5 points. But if I build the city right there on the 6-4 free spot, I'll boost my production for 6 points. So that's the reason why I build it there. So you should always use the statistics, the mathematics of it. Like some people might say, oh, but 4 and 3, they are not as good as numbers like the 5 or the 8. But you should look on average. Like on average, if you have a city next to 3 and 4 spot, you will increase your production for 5 points, because the 4 on average rolls 3 times in 36 rolls, and number 3 rolls 2 times in the 36 rolls. And 3 plus 2 is 5. But on the other hand, increasing the 8 wheat spot would only increase it for 5 points, which is of course the same as 4 and 3, but it is better to diversify the wheat production, because if I build a city next to the 8 wheat spot, now the only thing they have to do is to block this 8 wheat spot, as you can see, and they are blocking the 8 wheat spot. But by building a city next to 4 and 3, will increase my wheat production for the same production points on average as an 8, but it is a lot less likely that they will put a robber there. And this was my reasoning why I built a city at that spot. Of course, usually you will not only, take into account what one single resource production, but usually you want to see you want to maximize the whole production of the whole spot. But this is special case, and as I said before, there are some general rules, but sometimes you'll just have to go on your own and do something else according to the situation you are in. Now, again, since I see that they're really engaging into robbing each other, I don't have any problem building a settlement in this 3-to-1 port, because if I saw that I'm playing with professional players, with very good players, and if I saw that they are robbing me immediately, as fast as soon as I am in the lead, I would not build a city, and I would not try to build a settlement there, but I would rather buy a development card, which is something that I'm actually going to do, because maybe 3-point lead over the last player is still just too much. I mean, I was hoping for Knight, a Monopoly, or a Victory Point, but instead I got Year of Plenty, which is probably the worst card in the entire game. Like, yes, it is useful in the beginning. In the beginning of the game, it can be extremely useful. Um, but in the middle part of the game and near the end, and especially for me right now, is actually completely useless card, because I mean I have a 2-to-1 port, so I'm not really lacking any specific resource, and I'll probably use it for the building a city. Now, another advice: if you get Year of Plenty, please don't be this guy who just uses it for building a road. You should always use Year of Plenty for the resource that you are really lacking. For example, if you are uh, a road player, and of course you don't have a lot of ore, then in this case you should actually use it for building a city. So you take 2 ores and just try to build a city fast. If you are a city knight player and you don't have, I don't know, wood, for example, well, then use it for in order to get 2 wood cards and build 1 road and a settlement. But really, please don't waste this card just to get a road or even to buy development cards. Just use it in order to get 1 victory point. That would be my advice, at least in the beginning and in the middle stages of the game. Now, of course, again, as I said, these are general rules. If you are, for example, competing with someone for extremely good spot, or no, I'm sorry, if you're competing with someone over the, for example, largest army, and you need to get, the third knight, but you get this card. Well, in this case, of course, use this card in order to get or to buy more development cards. But in general, I would really suggest you to just use it in order to get more victory points. Now I decided to build another city, and I'm pretty much right now just leaning towards sit and strategy, because I can see that purple really cut me out and I mean cut me off, and he'll probably get the longest road pretty soon. So that's the reason why I'll go for the largest army most likely. Although of course I can compete for the longest road. Maybe if I quickly get 2 additional points and then build additional road, I'll just sneak the longest road. That's also something I don't like about longest road. It is just too easy to take. Sometimes you just need to build a couple of roads and you just take it. But for the largest army, it's a lot harder because you have to first buy the development card and wait 1 turn, and you can only play one development card per turn. So that's the reason why it's better. Um, of course, the robbers are rolling all the time. I'm of course going to block the red now. Again, this is just this was just my guts, just my instinct. Like I saw that the purple is robbing the red player and not me. So I also decided to rob the red player. Why? Because I really don't want to give purple any kind of incentive to rob me. You know, kind of a psychological factor. Like we are all humans. We are not. I mean, I'm not playing against the computers. So if somebody robs you, then usually you want to get some revenge and you'll rob him in return. So that's the reason why I left the purple alone and just try to encourage him to put the rubber on red too and not on me, because right now I'm pretty confident that I can win this. I can win this game. And as you can see, the purple, yes, blocks my 8 wheat, but he robs the red player. Oh, another 7. Who knew? And red, of course, puts the rubber on me, which is a correct strategy. Um, takes my excuse me. Takes my sheep, which is unfortunate, but nothing I can do about it. Um, because I'm trying to build a settlement, and also I want to really start buying development cards. So this is, I mean, kind of a pretty smart move by the red by blocking this 10 sheep spot. Because by blocking everything else, like if you block any of the weak spots, like what's a big deal? Like I have the others. If you block wood, brick, I don't care. But about the sheep, I really care. Like I really need a lot of sheep right now. Oh, and another 7, and the purple, of course, puts it on the red. So that's what I was talking about. Now, maybe to say some things about the rubber placement. Um, it is again, there are some basic rules, but if you ask any professional players, you will probably get tons of different answers. Like some of them will say block someone who has the most points. Some will say block a resource that you have a lot but the other players don't have, so that you'll have the leverage, so you will be able to get good trades with others. Some will say never place a robber to the person who is behind you. For example, in this case, never place a robber on purple, because if he rolls a 7 or if he has a development card, he can immediately put it back on you. So the advice would be to always put a robber on a player who is who has a turn right before you, because by this you will enable the robber to stay on this on the production on the field for as long as possible. And there are of course many other strategies, like during the videos I will try to explain what I'm thinking. So right now my strategy is really kind of a psychological one, you know. I'm uh, breaking the bread with the purple, trying not to rob him and expecting in return that he will not rob me. And so yeah. Oh, and of course the pretty common strategy which most people employ by placing a robbery is, you know, try to hurt as much people as possible. So try to block the resource that most people are next to. So yeah, there are many strategies for the robber, and in my opinion, really, you should just not choose the one, but as I said, go with the flow. Just in a different games, you should employ different strategies. Like most of the time, in the beginning of the game, when the game starts, I don't try to, you know, insult anyone, so I will put the robber on as much people as possible, unless I see that one player is really has really good spots. And in this case, of course, I will write it in the chat and accuse or say, you know, look at this player. He has such a good starting placement, so that the other players will understand, you know, that he's a dangerous. And yeah, but otherwise usually in the beginning I will try to target as much people as possible to not get enemies, and then later just go with the flow and see what the other players are doing, who is in the lead, and you know, just looking at the game, how the game progressed. And right now, as you can remember, I was crying about um, having not enough sheep, but right now I have 5 sheep, so yeah, I guess I'll trade them for something useful. Uh, this right now, you can see, was a mistake. I should first use a knight before the dice, and then later roll the dice, because you can play the knight before you roll the dice. So in this case, if I roll the 10, you know, it would be pretty unfortunate for me. But thankfully, of course, this did not happen. And again, I place it on the red, trying to get additional sheep in order to trade free sheeps for an ore, because I want to keep buying these development cards. Now, oh, maybe another thing that I forgot actually to mention to you. This is not an ordinary Catan scenario. So in ordinary Catan, you can get 2 additional points um, by building, you know, 5 roads, so you get longest road, or by having free knights, or using free knights, and you get the largest army. But in this scenario, you can also get additional 2 victory points if you have 3 victory points in the ports, which mean if you're the first player to, for example, build 3 settlements in the ports, or if you have 1 city and 1 settlement in the ports. So which I want to say, you need to have 3 victory points worth of buildings in the ports, which I got, and this brings me to 10 victory points. But of course, in this kind of scenario where you also have so-called harbor master, it is called harbor master. So you get additional 2 victory points for the ports. Of course, the number of points you need to have in order to win is increased to the 11. So I actually need another victory point to win. Now the red player disconnected, which in reality means that he just gave up on his game, because in reality This means that people just click the refresh button on the on their screen, and they're trying to they don't want to queue directly by pressing the queue button, but they are queuing indirectly by just refreshing and loading the game again. And of course, they need to load more than a minute and a half, and then they just automatically dropped out of the game. Thankfully, the purple player decided to continue the game, even though he probably knows he has almost no chance of winning, which is a compliment to him, I guess. I mean, something pretty rare these days, because my biggest complaint about the Catan universe is that there is such a small player base that you really can't play only with the people who never queued the games. So you're forced to play with the bad players and with the queuers who are just queued at the moment that they see they have no realistic chance of winning the games. And even the worst, like they are even the worst people, like there are players who queued the game, or even in the beginning, if they think they don't have a good starting position. For example, if they're not the first, they just quit the game. So that's something I think developers should look after. And I hope they will, because this game is in the closed beta right now, so everything you see is of course subject to change. Um, Trying to get a brick out of someone in order to trade free bricks for ore. Purple, of course, doesn't want to trade with me, which is understandable and something completely, or the correct thing to do, because you never want to trade with the leader who is like 1 point away from winning the game. Unless, of course, you can you will get the resources needed in order to win. Again, the exception of the rule, but most likely in most scenarios, when someone in general, if someone is more than if someone has 7 points, 7 victory points or more, you usually don't want to trade with him, unless again you have uh, more points or you are about the equal as he is. So 7 is being rolled again. Sevens are quite popular in this game. But sometimes you have games where there are no sevens at all, like something you really don't have any influence on. And at the end of the game, you should really know that even if you have the best strategy, um, if you really master planned everything, if you did everything correctly, there is no guarantee that you're going to win. There's like probability here in Catan. Like on average, you will, if you're a very good player, you will win most of your games, but not all, because um, this game is not like completely mathematics. Like the dice sometimes, will favor the other players, even though they place the settlement in the wrong way. But that's again the beauty of this game, because sometimes you will be the beneficiary of the dice. I've had the situations where I got the worst spot, but the dice favored me in the correct at the correct times, so I was able to win. And of course, we got lucky. The 4 gave me 2 wits, and I won the game. As you can see from the statistics, 7 was rolled 17 times in this game. Also, 8 was pretty underwhelming, to be honest with you. Only 4 times, and the robber was or spent most of its time on the 8, so I guess I didn't building a settlement right there was not a good investment on my side. But on the other hand, 4 was pretty above average, the same amount as 5. Um, then 9 was rolling pretty good, so I guess the other two players were the beneficiary of this. But other than that, the other, or also the 6 was not rolling as much as you would expect it to roll. So yeah, I mean, it's not like the dice favored me that much in the game. Um, the 7 was, of course, over-rolling, but on the other hand, 6 and 8 were not rolling at all, and this really hurt everyone, especially the purple who built his settlements around the 8 ore spot, and he also had an ore port, but at the end of the day, there was no ore for him. So yeah, I guess this really helped me because of the wheat production. So 3, 4s, and 5s were good numbers for me to roll. So maybe to recap the strategy, remember that employing the monopoly strategy, where you have a large amounts of single resource and then use a port to use it, is very long. It takes a long time to win, and use it only where the island is put in a strange way and the other players have very bad placement. So that's all for today, and hopefully I see you soon. Bye, guys.